Thank you for coming in for this meeting today. First off, I just want to start off by saying it has been an absolute pleasure to work with your students so far throughout the course of this semester. To watch him grow and to watch his confidence grow has been an absolute pleasure, and it has been amazing to work with him. He has put in the proper work ethic and determination to truly succeed and accomplish great things throughout the course of the year, and it definitely shows with his assessment results and the work that he has put in. With the work that he has put in and the accomplishments that he has achieved so far, we actually believe that your child can be exited from special education services in terms of math. So what that would kind of look like is that his math goal would be exited from his IEP, and it would mainly just focus on his reading goal. And I'll kind of go more into that in a little bit, and kind of the decision and the assessment scores that went into making that decision in a little bit. But first, I kind of wanted to go into how I conduct my classroom and kind of how I run my classroom and my educational philosophy. My educational philosophy is that all children are capable of extraordinary things when given the proper tools to succeed. In my classroom, I do my best to equip students with the proper tools to be successful in any situation that they find themselves in, whether that may be on the playground, whether that be during a difficult math test, and wherever they find a struggle, that they have a strategy that they can implement to be successful in that situation. So not only do I do my best to help them academically, but also physically, mentally, emotionally, and socially as well. I run my classroom with my students' thoughts in mind and keep with their needs in mind as well. What's really nice about my classroom is that the most students that I serve at one time is 2, and in your particular situation, your son actually received services from me in a small one-to-one group setting. So it was really nice because I was able to provide individual and immediate feedback, as well as really hone in on some of the areas of improvements that he needed to really get him to where he is at today. And I think it has been very, very successful in that small group setting and working with him and kind of working on those learning skills to bring him to where he is at today. In my classroom, I go over the expectations at the beginning of the year, and those are reinforced constantly at the beginning of the year, the first couple months. That way that students know the routines, they get into those routines, and they know the expectations right away when they walk into the classroom. There's no surprises, they know how the classroom is going to run, and it's run with a lot of repetition. So that basically looks like when we go over a topic or we go over some material, that topic and material is revisited often so that the material can really get reinforced and the student can really grasp on to the learning. Lastly, what I really like to do is offer choices as much as I can with students. I believe that offering choices with students helps them really find meaning in the classroom, and really help them find a voice in their learning, which I think is very important to do as well. Kind of talk about differentiation, kind of how I provide that for your student. So differentiation involves providing students with basically different means and different ways to understand information. So basically just finding different ways and different methods that we can present students with information that they can relate to it and they can fully understand it. Because like we know, not all students are the same and they don't learn all the same. So it's important that we are differentiating lessons and kind of making lessons specialized and kind of individualized to the students so we can really help them and with their individual needs of improvement and really hone in on those to improve those. And also like the one-to-one attention, like I said, or the one-to-one instruction really allows me to focus directly on the students' needs and the lagging areas, which is truly meeting the needs of my students and really helping them grow overall. Alright, so now I kind of want to go into some of the assessments that went into the decision-making process that we believe that your son can be exited from special education services. So first I'll kind of go over the FastBridge assessments. And the FastBridge assessments were conducted over 14 weeks. And what the FastBridge assessment is it's conducted on a laptop, and it's a 3-minute timed test. What it's addition and subtraction problems up to 20. So that means the highest number for subtraction that would be on top is 20, and the most that the sum would be for an addition problem, it would not exceed 20. We conducted this every single week for 14 weeks, and on the first week, what we kind of noticed is that your son was able to score 35 out of 55, or 35 correct points. And typical peers were able to score 55. So we can see that kind of lagging difference, just a little bit, that there was a little bit of a lagging difference. And I'll kind of pull up a graph too that kind of shows everything as well. So this graph, and I'll kind of go into the scores in just a minute, I'll kind of explain the graph first. This graph is really nice because it has an aim line code, so it shows the baseline of where he started off and where we wanted him. And it's really nice too because it also has a peer line, and it shows where his peers are compared to him, and then also has his line, so kind of his scatter, and where he was at, and all of his data points and where he fell. So it has all of the components, so you can see where your son was directly at as well as where his peers were at that time. And as we can see right here, eventually he was a little bit below his peers, but as we progressed, we can see right here that by the end, he was able to be directly where he was at. So we'll kind of go over directly those scores directly with you. So at the first week, he was able to score 35, and a typical peer is able to score 55. And in the third week, he was able to score 42, and a typical peer is able to score 60. By the fifth week, he was able to score 49, and a typical peer is 66. So we can still see that he's making some progress at closing that gap, but there's still a little bit of discrepancy. It was really nice 3 weeks later that he was actually able to score 65, and a typical peer was able to score 73. So we can see that, like I said, that the gap again is closing and closing, and that the supports that we've been using in the special education classroom were really working and really starting to see a significant improvement and really starting to see those strategies really starting to present themselves and work. By week 11, he was able to score 74 points on the FastBridge assessment when a typical peer was able to score 79. So like I said, really closing that gap, and eventually by the last week he was able to score 85, and right where a typical peer was 85 as well. So that was one of the reasons that went one of the things that went into the decision-making process that we believe that that your son can be exited from special education services. What also went into the decision-making process that your son could be exited from special education services was the general education assessments. So the general education assessments obviously were the assessments conducted in the general education classroom. And those were over broad terms. It kind of went over everything that the classroom has been working on throughout the course of the year. On the first assessment that your son took in the classroom, he was able to score 20 out of 24, which is 83%. And a typical peer was able to score 21 out of 24, which is 88%. So like we can see, just a little, even just 1 point, just a little bit behind. And then by the second week, he was actually right on par with his typical peers and scored 24 out of 24, which a typical peer scored 24 out of 24 as well with a 92%. By the third week, he fell off just a little bit, and he scored 18 out of 24, and a typical peer scored 21 out of 24. And by the fourth week, he actually outperformed his peers and scored 24 out of 24, which is 100%, and his peers scored 23 out of 24, which was a 96%. So it was absolutely awesome to see the progress that he has made. And based on his general education scores, we can see right there that he's right where right where his typical peers are at, and right kind of where we want him to be. So it's been absolutely awesome to see the growth and to see that gap between him and his peers close, and to get him where he is at today. Alright, so moving forward, what we propose then is that your son can actually be exited from special education services. I don't want you to think that his special education services are completely off the table for the rest of his educational career. If we see that this is just not working and that the supports that he's receiving in the general education classroom just aren't enough, special education services can be provided again in the future. So I don't want you to think, or don't want you to be hesitant or get really scared about this decision right now. It's just what we propose now, but in the future, if this is something that we decide that he needs again, this is something that we can definitely provide for your child. all of the services then that he will receive for math will strictly be given in the general education classroom. So any areas that need improvement will be worked on specifically in the general education classroom in their math station time. So in their math station time, they have different stations where students rotate, and during these stations, the general education teacher is able to kind of individualize the activities that are at that station, so we can really hone in on the areas of improvement that the child need at those individualized stations. We can also provide you with additional resources that you can use at home to really help your student as well, and to really help and to really work on those things that the general education classroom teacher is working on as well. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to myself or the general education teacher with any questions or any comments or any concerns. If you have any questions on how to navigate those resources or how to use those resources or anything at all, please feel free to contact us. Do you have any questions moving forward? No? All right, and like I said again, if you need anything, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Once again, it has been an absolute pleasure to work with your child this semester, and I wish you the best moving forward. Thank you for coming in today, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks. Bye.